who killed the cops. So briefly, we just want to look at, prosecutorial biases in the Gambia, and, they continued, attempts of the regimes, not just this regime, but even the previous regimes. It's just like it's a historical fact on our, jurisprudence, that people just run a single narrative and use the single narrative to prosecute and incarcerate people on false pretense or lies that are masterminded by the same people that are prosecuting you. So what we want to, preface this conversation to is primarily not the police today, but the, justice ministry. So it's a known fact in the Gambia that upon investigation of every case, the police, probably not every case, but most cases, or as peculiar as the one that has to do with the killing of the cops, the police will investigate everything and send their investigation reports to the Ministry of Justice. Now, the Ministry of Justice would actually review those files and either the evidence or whatever that the police would have brought to them, and would recommend, for either prosecution or for whatever legal action that is to be taken. Now, if that is the process and that is the procedure that the police follow, let's put in this case, into perspective. Now, the Ministry of Justice, having all these lawyers, well-educated, unquestionable academic pedigrees, having followed from point 1 to Z, decided to take this matter to court. And it leaves one with one question: how, why, and who recommended for Usain Bojang's prosecution at the Ministry of Justice? Are they part of the criminal enterprise? Are they complicit in the crime? Are they part of the perpetrators of this crime? Because the whole point is that you got somebody. First, you told us that he wore a combat boot, and that combat boot did not fit him in court. But before we even get to the courts, first you said somebody killed 2 cops. You gave us 2 narratives, that Mama Jabi actually got the person and had recorded him on an audio. Second narrative is that the police used their codes to track this person from one point to another and got him. That is already 2 narrations that the police gave us. First, that of Mama getting him through, an audio that he recorded his confession. Second is the police that used codes that never existed. Now, with all of these 2 informations are enough for the Ministry of Justice to call the police to order, to ask them clarity on this particular matter, but that did not happen. Now, the same police told us that Usain Bojang works at Brikama Area Council, is a member of the UDP, was at the Yankuba Dabas court case in Banjul, was there with a gun, he is the guy in hoodie. And all of these things happened before going to court. What did the Justice Ministry do to verify all of these informations provided to the public by the police before recommending for this case to be taken to court? They told us that part of the money he was paid to kill was recovered, but no money is seen up till date. Why didn't the Justice Ministry confirm all of these information that were given to the public by the police and the government of the Gambia? That somebody picked the gun on the day of the incident, but decided that his boss told him to hide it somewhere and not to tell anybody, and then he will arrange for it to be picked up, but his boss was never picked up, the witness was never picked up, but these people has concealed this gun for 10 days. That actually led to the regime to say that it cannot be subjected to DNA because it was exposed to sunlight and, rain. But the Ministry of Justice that had made the recommendation to go to court, what report did you base that decision on? How did you get to the conclusion that this is a potential suspect and should be taken to court based on what evidence? There is complicity at the Ministry of Justice, because it is the Ministry of Justice and their prosecutors that came to court and said that Mama Jabi's audio is in court. It is actually lost. Atol nintol tema. Allah do ko moment. Walanka tonya in tilingo tamandi Gambian kolube tema, irrespective of the political divide they're coming from. But of course, your prosecutorial biases alka nyinneke to be supporting regimes fanyakang, tilimbaliakang, and intajidenteyaka. And the Ministry of Justice, through their prosecutors, came to court to lie to the court that Mama la audio filter, but audio ning police the prosecutor ning police, as an institution, has transcribed this audio over 3 times and realized that there is no single part of the audio where this boy talked about killing the cops. They decided to drop the audio. You came to court, you did not say, oh, we are dropping the audio because there is no evidence in it to this matter. But I'll not only fanya for the audio is lost. Why will the regime lie this much? Alanga tonya fasano. Alanga ke tonya folalti. Ninga tilimbaliaje nga fono ko nyimo tilimbalialti. Boy we na we boy nyul na ne cook. Wala mu duniati. But again, this same Ministry of Justice, even the Minister of Justice will campaign for him. It's not that you are going to campaign for him. You have been campaigning for him, and you have been doing all the dirty job for him when it comes to justice and the deliverance of justice in the country. Atoli Fania min Laos Bojankang is enough to us this regime. What about you? Yaje Hadamadonive Kuoku Kela Drong. Ise hakiloto. Atol nintol be mu Gambia nollati. Alaman karanti, alaman dunia lonti, alaman dunia tamanti, alaman dunia fahamunti. Atol ka mano manka mano malka atol hadamadongolati ntol mu tole ollati. That you people can come and fabricate all your lies and then we will sit like the dumbest people in the world and accept it? When in reality, this regime is a kakistocratic regime ruled by the worst of our society. Ole be finti la kafo mole ko ha nyina mutonyata nyina mangetonya. Baranga meratol le control yoko. Usenu Bojang confessed to the killing of the cops and you got recordings of that. But be alaji be mimbe kering Gambia. Itolo ko Usenu Bojang mir record and what recordings be tolbul and itoli o mutawala kang. What recordings latin itoli o recommendation okay to take this person to court. Itolo murunda court and ko recordings will filter. But eti amra momi yalonko you are a prosecutor of the state of the Republic of the Gambia. Gambia dingo be okusifa ko ne nyabe tonyala. Alka fania for court. Atoli la fita monala. Because the audio is lost. But now we have provided, because we cannot lose sight of all of this. And let me be clear, I personally provided the audio because I got it. We provided this audio. Ning audio ya samban court to present it to court. You people vehemently try to condemn its admissibility. But I told leko audio la balabulu senu ya fodame nkatale police olo fa. Mone ati natol ba balan nalla audio ni samban na court. And no atol leko audio filter. Alia fani ya foko audio filter la audio manfil. Another audio fintinda alia fanan ka samban na court. Kala audio fele jalko senu boja ya fodame nkay police olo fa. Al murunda ko dengal ko hani. Albe balamba ala ko audio ni manda present la to court. And now the court accepted the audio to be taken for transcription. Ya jalbe balango minna kotenge. Kafo ko ha audio nyunkono. Audio nyunkono musa balbe diamola je. Mama jabi. Alfu seni dari ani usenu bojang. Me audio transcribe. Asafe ni momo be diamola raketo la keje karle nyimfo almunda nan ko dengal ko hani. Audio nyunkono, it has to be in verbatim. Miya for mimma for bao mantra audio to let the transcriber not speculate. I accept. I give you that. I'll talia transcribe in verbatim. Come back to court and let the court determine who said what. Because mingo miye min for moli olon. Nto nyama ma. Nko nyama made. To think that you will go and transcribe it in verbatim and bring it to court and the court will not know who said what and what. You will bring the transcription and of course that transcription will be brought to court and we will make sure that Useno Bojang tells or you will replay the audio again in court and we determine who said what. Nyondonyo ay samba boy. Atoloma nyamentality. We don't need to study law to actually to understand basics. Daliwa la fo luwa mesia la mesia mo tapale yaleti tapalele ka baran ntolla tilingo tonya tamandola but yalong ntaka nyine for politician only because this case I told you I've seen people in my own community start to even talk shit. Few people who talk trash talk about me kafo dole ko karla kala bula karaji fenke dula kafala tala ni ko dal kal ke bula Malmo le fe look nemo senu man dem bala na man dem fala na man bo korra kili na man bo kabila kili na man bo koñ kili. I actually got involved in this because my sister that recently passed away was his classmate, and he was coming to the hood to actually see her. And she was constantly calling me, Omar, you got to support Hussein. Unfortunately, she was up and down mile 2 week in, week out, you know. Unfortunately, she passed. But the fact of the matter is that, why would you sit in our community to tell other people that, oh yeah, Moro, it's our collective responsibility to defend nothing but the truth. Osenu does not need to come from the hood for me to defend the truth. Ani atara bodo sate dol to ngalon ko be tilimbalian in tajidinti ala tamande kaka nkamin fo bimbo la falaje. Wala alon tol dam mala wulu da nyoka nyolon kunda kon do nyenen kata wodo. Abuka mo badande diam mesangol la go and do your NPP nonsensical politics. I'm not interested in it. But this case, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that you can do that we will not talk the truth. We will not speak our mind on it. You know what? But the fact of the matter is that after all of these things, the shoes did not fit. That actually tells about the Ministry of Justice incompetence. You said the audio is lost. That tells about the lies and deceit of the Ministry of Justice of the Gambia. President of Findidako, Minister from the Political Kela, that talks about your inconsistency and unrealistic arbitration of justice to the people of the Gambia. Ko alkalo be political Kela to lela, but I metale on them be kuti. Ole atin alkalo dolo buy because alkalo buka win je. But I think Adam Baro Kate mo mota do kola, or be nyanta dala motalale. I see Jumale Walta do kola. Many along ko sun suluto le from a beje. Mo horoman tambalu. Many along ko invite, you know, TV platform or to ask them basic questions on corruption and corruption scandals within the IEC. Okay, from company for wulika for it. Those are the people. Ndolga mini miracle. They are the most just people that would actually arbitrate fair, free and fair elections in our country. Obeke no la nyadi. Momi yalon ko itaman dola nafulo fon aisi la ko daro ko fon sunya ita amra wolba election o dumala tamand la no to nyani tinonka. Or we think it's the older person who was there who left. No, probably he was too old. It was this guy's Joe Kolilombani Moko. We are the ones running the show. Aisi la ko daro ko dunala personal account nyadi ita amra wolbe tilimon you know tonya tamand la no election jumalto. Whereas we've heard the president saying every person he gives jobs to or appoint should actually hold on to Atela Toka. It's like playing football and the referee and his linesmen are all actually playing for the opponent team. Next year's election is going to be, you know, penalties without a goalkeeper. But how would you have a goalkeeper? When the referee and his linesmen are all actually for the regime, sun suluto wala mundola IC the Gambia. Mini along ko man killing kodo la karola. Amra olbe killing na karela karola. So this is what the Gambians need to understand, that in this case, you politicize it, we would legally fight it with you, and we will socially fight it with you, and of course, we will politically fight it with you. Alman baraka moti nyimbankoka. Alchilingon into nyata mandi. Alman nyontam kuke nyimbankoka mone na maminke. Alberti limon into nyala tamandela. Ha. Gambia dembele nyabe to nyala no falimo dembele ngalon ko banko sula dawala lambe bitembo minto to hani cement boto amanso to banko kan. You know mko teme nyanta. And that is not because cemento mansoro dunia kon, cemento ba foreign dunia kon, but it's because of their monopolies, because of their deliberate intent to monopolize the sector and of course give it to their own funders. It's a welda maka balu ka kodo, you know, ka price o lafan no Gambian kolo ka Gambian kolo tora, so that those monies will be used for their politics and they bring those monies and circulate it back to the few people to get votes and continue to subjugate our people. Pomuntoma. Nabe funding kella, a sembo bela, a londo bebulu, a fahamro bela, a connection o bela, a dajuko bela, a contano from bela, having the desire to serve the people to the best interest of our country. And we are trying to compare them to the most evil regime that ever existed. Adamu Mansula fengo fenna na manke atela palasot. And he doesn't care if you all die. This is the fact. And anybody within the regime who is supporting the regime, they are not after the interest of the collective good of this country. They are only after their individual positions. They are only after their own welfare. They are not in there for the common good of the Gambian people. No. I don't see wage man for 600 and some baba for 1,000. Go. Why do you have a man about from man of my Itajala? Because of their monopolies and the deliberate intent to subjugate the Gambian people. You know, you go to the airport, you are forced to pay $20 for what? Because some evil people thought the government had no money or they had to manipulatively do things to continue to subjugate Gambians. And of course, we will always accept and start paying those monies. It's not ordinarily saying, oh no, let's accept this, let's accept that. No. Ntol dalta min naka kol Sonia ni Sonia tambirungo akata mantora jawala simuluma ni mansa kundala jaw yarat mansa kundala bete mi yalon ko reka konko ni foire yani batal la fay la muluka en lam ko te min nyanda danna. And that is why I think every genuine Gambian should actually oppose this government to actually get out of office. Wala mto nyati nko atol lako Useno Bojang mu rebelolti you could not prove it. Atol lako Useno Bojang works in Brikama Area Council. You could not prove it. Atol lako he had co-conspirators who actually provided him the escape vehicle. You could not prove it. Atol la Murun Talkon told you he was the one in hoodie at the Yankuba Dabo case. You could not prove it. Atol lako you had an audio where this guy confessed to the killing. You said the audio is lost. We brought the audio to court. You are now fighting tooth and nail, you know, to prevent the admissibility of that audio. Nko gammi nko wala saya muna tutajento lema mimfato le mi alonko wala mtu wanyani ntili ngota case kola. What is left in this case that is not clear yet? When we can clearly see the government hiding at every possible, point. Moto mimfango itoloko wala Useno Bojang na moto wala mo fala la moto yara from police wala from tamo moto muna dal mo police arrest and wo police kido bobulle. Why was that person not investigated and interrogated or probably prosecuted? But none of that happened. And will be alkali canton. That is how you people are so used to a single narrative prosecution and incarceration. And that is the policing and of course the criminal justice system of our country. And this is actually run by the Ministry of Justice, and this is where we think we have the best of people. Corruption it's not just Wakawa, it's not just your DPP, it's every other individual in that place. Atolbe minna wodla abelankena marena molialon the single narrative prosecution in Tilimbalial Membeje. Some of you people from are part of the drug lords in our country. No long kunda kontanyin kata wato. When law enforcers become the criminal drug lords, when law enforcers become people who actually fabricate scripts against people, when people who are actually there to arbitrate justice to people become the most unjust people in our society, what exactly do you expect from such a society? That society needs a total overhaul and of course a reset. And that is why we want to believe in a young dynamic leadership that will bring about that positive change and leadership to the country. Go. Historically, if you look at it, Ibu so, Commissioner so, DIG so, Pate Jallo, even the military is complicit in the killing of the cops because he told the offender that ballistic examination which is filled with lies and deceit. In Murunta Kwatanga, we have 3 military officers who said they were the ones at that scene and they were coming from Palmarima. At the same time, their call logs indicated that they were calling each other. The same people said they were running after the gunman and of course he was shooting at them, but they could see that he is turning to shoot at them, but they could not even tell if he wore a white or a red cloth. That tells a lot about the military. It's the same military folks that said, oh, well, we got battle sock. You got battle sock, but you're still running after a man who was actually shooting at you. One of the most feared and notorious criminals ever in the Gambian military is captured. Atolfanana lumbe lungolo konole. Ate baila muku. Yaga degarek mo wur. Asa mi nyao nyato nyala belawana. Mineka mol fanu ko camera ko selling on insi selling be walale. But again, that tells about the regime's complicity in all of that, because you had never had any interest in prosecuting all of these people, because you never did anything. Al-Mahani attempt killing to actually get those people. It's other countries and of course, Senegal and other people who probably would do whatever they can to get them, but it's never the government of the Gambia. Because looking at this case with Jammeh, Minkaleko is coming to the Gambia. It should be in the interest of the government of the Gambia to send a passport to him to say, come quickly. Because in because you definitely need to come and clarify or probably go face justice. But you all started shouting, no, I see you. Atol ko momi mo jël famo la banko kang be kere jatul man daw kam makana o tilini ni silo ni tonyala. That should be the priority, because you said you were going to deliver justice in those cases, and what did you do? You now want him to just sit there so you can continue to loot. But ni aja fanan tonya tamala je momi yaron ka ko ni solo wafu kemelulu la 900 ni ku ko tangol la o manke masa kunda tilini. Gambia be den dafa minna peme mu ko ni solo woni si baratol ko wafu 900 la o mo tonyal. But before we actually talk about that, for Adam Barola manta, Kanila, Jammeh could come back. You see, when these people need votes, akajari ye kuobella. Wala nyinde ko nyine manke tonya multi, manke tonya masa kundati. They are not people to be trusted because they don't believe in anything. Masa kundama la fengo fenna. Na manke intola kunkili na falti drum. And anything that comes between them and that dunalen jara luneka. Kado kunung ite mimbe keta jang everything we've heard. Ite wuli ita for ya jamela korra kono fon trying to celebrate that person foka wala na ko ite mo fan cult. It's not good to repeat those words, but what he said basically makes a lot of sense, because nita manke what in your right mind would you think about going to Kanilai trying to say, hey, Jammeh is a gunman, he could come here and there. And now he said he's coming. He said, ate alo ne mansa sembo minde sembe tetela. Senegal le kete prote. Kete alo noko sembe tetela. Ela mansa kunda kurungo le tini ya jamela mansa kunda manfata. Kara ato le police ul falme fa fenna fo UDP ngani ya joya. Moro yaje, when people do things, it's a UDP konya onya. It's a kanyang. And then you use your brain. Adama di yafa nambe wala nyama. Adama UDP dunia fengo bele kete. Ni UDP ya kata momo ye Gambia ya kata o minkete ye make mokote ye. And then for you keep claiming that, oh no, yende sacrifice Adamadi. UDP picked you at the perfected time. And then I often tell people that the removal of Jammeh was not just a single act of an individual or a group. It was a combination of a perfection of factors. And at that point, you are on the list to be picked. Yet, UDP did everything they could for the least person to be picked. Even though most people were not happy about it. But they did everything humanly possible to make sure you were picked. You were picked. Fortunately, you became president. But ite man jowianing hasidianing konanteatili mulla mintambira UDP. And that should define who you are. Biye minike terite kuno iko minika mofala kajela patibe kuobe. UDP did everything through a coalition to bring you to power. They of course through some actions kind of betrayed or negated that line, and then you actually went on to betray every other person and bring the people that were subjugating this country as your biggest allies, and they are now the masterminds and the controllers of your regime. But Adama foila mansa kunda sita fo fuda tembo do falie police lo fa kamurun ko tenge ka wala UDP ga no ngajo yalo na barne na malon ko Adama do fana sa foto do so ko mol min yalon ko le kato belekete to make you where you are. When mo wol jono nyi nyala kana konante ya njo ya ni fisiri walle ya mimbe dandin ten ko teli wala la. You know mtonyati. Some of them would come to me and say, oh, don't talk about UDP. You said you support United Movement. Look, UDP is an institution. It's not owned by any individual. When we talk about the truth, we talk about the truth. I don't really care who it favors and who it doesn't. But what I believe in is what I believe in. Moro Masakunda among Korea minta Masakunda mi yalonko it monopolizes the entire cement sector to give it to one single individual, and this individual more or less is a founder of the regime. So wala nyindi ko it will be kodo so dole family nyamin drong iman kea Gambia no labata dala. Wale atin ne tollo control de ko sen we do ko la brikama area council there UDP ko la mata be UDP la court case but min fan kan fam fo nyimo police le police kuntiol. Whether you go to the National Assembly, many along with Kukanela Saradi La Fa Koteng. Bila wala Gambia National Assembly more so the mini Jowiata, National Assembly member, the Mintambita, this past two, legislatures we've ever had. Mini bota je walia minke walka na land letaka talai da malu tema. Yindolo nata e ko clothing allowance le di fangola e paradol di fangola e bota je ko e ka credit allowance o di fangola e ka essence allowance o di fangola e ke la salary lafa e bota je ko le ko disia ko den ke ba la fa la ko den and e ka wala farol min beke and they claim that they are the ones who are paying part of the parado. All the money is coming from the taxpayer because nyine ko do wonni mun dole dole be ko no kunun wol je taxi driving la jam Gambiano la ka mo furu mo barakande amurun ko den ga kon nante yan tilimbal ya tilingila Gambiano lo man fude. Those you can deceive are those who are actually into your politics. But many nyabe tonya la yalon ko tilingon in tonya be daming. Many yalon ko luolung woli yalon ne kila dimbal sambanyami. Woli yalon ne tonya be daming. Woli yalon no ko nyumanke Masakunda kenende. Woli yalon no ko almantra tonya ni tilingon kang. Woli yalon no ko this government is built on lies, deceit, and manipulation. But funny I had to commit all lamona family lebejede. But ining ala tema ko tonya ni tilingon itoli yalon no ko tilimbal yala be Masakunda. Kadu mo kilingo mi yalon ko ite mom baraka hani bulado ning Gambian ko le mo wuli ka carte fayde kete ke fendi ite murun ko den kete ko alkatol la salary la lafa ali loi fon da ka ko mom mo yatol ne ngatol sol sorong bar natol ye mol ne kuta bolaje. What kind of an animal farm is this? What kind of a regime is this? Alinya bala molbe ni sol wafala 900 nin ku kotengo la le fengol the former president's bagasol come in for mola land. You even took our lands and of course shared it among yourself, the ministers. So atoli muneke in the deliverance of justice for the people of the Gambia. What attempts have you done to see the perpetrators of heinous crime? If I see people celebrate sana manjang nyola muto onko sana manjang nyola boss nyol wala meta Gambia le be siri be tenkunding kumanke je kese mambo jabato. Minisita nibe nyatili nyole kabo kondanga momi nanga mofa siata. Nyabela, they are sitting in our communities. We have seen other perpetrators of some of these crimes. Mini alonko yenye Masakundala ebulo do nyobulu. Na mole jele yo Masakundala jalolo, wala mnyi Masakundala jalol tibi. O Masakundala baramal, wala mnyi Masakundala baramal tibi. Wala mana falenta nyumbankoka. So my focus has always been who killed the cops. Telephone format. Why would you format your prime suspect's telephone? And that all your telephone used to track this particular person. When you fanyala sort of the Gambia. Koloho mobe tulo bala. And we've seen other cases here. On this case, me alonko. If you look at it, Oseno being so innocent, every other day, his family need to bring them food because another sister belebeje. Let's say at least these people spend to and fro every day to bring lunch to their people, at least $200. Almost 2 years time. If you calculate that $200 is every day, 365 days is about $73,000. Right? Moro yo wala nyokang, in 2 years that's about $146,000. With a struggling family, where will they get $146,000? Let's say $150,000. Atara domoro fonla depanso ni kukota mambona okon. Ale wandi dimbal tora. Ale dundi mantoro kono. Albe mantora kan hanfo bi. Gambia, more than 2.5 million people sitting and looking at outright injustice, and everybody thinks that it's okay. Nothing should be said about it. And I've seen people of my own community, when the folks actually took their, Yamorota, Purkatani, Kidula, Katanusian, no control be fail funding killing, Ekalamtala, and then we are not really, with the people who feel that, they could just subjugate you anyhow. Killing Kibula Malmolofi. If they come to you to say that kind of bullshit, just give them my number. Let them call me and tell me that. But because of your political desires, because of your political selfishness, because of your simple little things, that cheeky change that you're getting from the NPP, iman tonya from fasano me de o kan feka from modole ko karla kalbula nyene moba mobula la munala alfal mini alonko isiara that ni ke long probably knows how this world works way more than I do. You think I could actually influence people to say what? To go and see Hussein is a crime? Ngo Tuesday melalang rafaje kodenge na be kela kodeng meranga faje for long na be ban, and we hope that the judge, just like you did in Yankuba Toure's case, when delivering that judgment, you will televise it, that the whole world know that the government of the Gambia is complicit in the killing of the cops, and came out to vehemently lie about the killing of the cops, including the Ministry of Justice and in the entire security apparatus, because military actually lied about the ballistic examination and there are 3 officers who were involved. The police lied about everything and of course tried to put it on the United Democratic Party. And Sankare as the government spokesperson, what Alan Natambital. Well, I didn't know model Peter is a veteran journalist. I don't give 2x to that. The government utilizes Peter's radio to spew out their garbage and fabricate their script against Usain Bojang, and everybody was listening to it. And now for that somebody was actually texting to say that this person should not even be prosecuted. They should investigate him and of course go and kill him by hanging. And Peter had the guts and the audacity to read that text on his radio on a matter that is not even before the court yet. That is professionalism for you. That you are injecting that anger in the minds of Gambians, already vilifying this person as if he is the murderer, that of course he should not even be prosecuted, he should not be taken to court. People should just, a quick number of folks should just go and investigate him, just like they did with their lies and deceit and their manipulation, and of course he should just be taken to a public space and of course be killed by hanging. Peter sumako wahon sa dom dunalania. And I've seen a couple of people jump now, no, yo, warulo, wahdara, and they try to ethnicize it, thinking that, oh, I was referring to Peter as an individual, and then they want to make it look like I was talking to, oh yeah, yo, warulo, wahnjago, dara. I haven't a few people that came with that nonsense, I put you right on your spot. Da peting pujakuma da pek banyaka chimanjako, da pete pujakuma indi pebu kame ubarare to chinati, indi pebu kumpu meneka gusuko kanchikete Gambia thing, but you uraju Peter Gomez to spew that nonsense. And you all were listening to it and you know what exactly was happening. If I use my radio to actually be transmitting informations like that, and to a point that I cannot even filter the kind of messages I'll be reading messages that actually are suggesting go and actually, tie this guy on a rope and of course kill him by hanging. When in reality, the person did not even go under any legal, procedures yet. Should that be a message that a responsible journalist be reading on your radio? Almam Dawala, Sankare came back after being superior to court and then sat with Peter Gomez and castigating the same court, saying that, of course, their language is, discourteous. That means the superior language of the court is rude. And they were laughing out loud about it when 2 cops were being killed. And your own radio is being used to actually spew nonsense about that same case. And a few of you who think that it's about ethnicity. One of the boys killed 4 manka manjakot. For Fidala manjaku yabo nyato. There's a few individuals who basically do not know anything about life. They will just jump. They don't even know you. They just see you. They think they could just come with their sentimental judgments on people, trying to tell, oh, you cannot say. Look. If I have an issue with an individual, I deal with it decisively that way. Nino mutonyat. Ni wolmato la alalti go and worship them. I don't do that. I don't worship human. And if they are too old to be told the truth, go and deal with that, because nobody is older than the truth when it comes to me. I don't care about what you think about me. At the end of the day, you don't even know how they actually grow up in my mouth. So you know mukute mimbe sodoring. Ning ayatara biyete do mala muta fanyakang. Ebe wuliasi fa bela lakang. Ntanga na radio ta to be spewing that information, trying to convince the masses, because this case has taken different dynamics. First, they wanted to convince the people that Hussein Obojang, of course, did it. And of course, he was a member of the UDP. What medium did they use? They used Peter Gomez radio to actually filter that information, making it look like it's the UDP that is behind the guy. It's the UDP that killed the cops. Of course, he works in Brikama Area Council. He is a rebel. Adunta Jaborajan. Molo Murunta Yal Fanny and the Walker Yal subpoena to court. You came back to the same radio, caricaturing the court's language that it used to subpoena some of you, and of course went back to the same radio that you were actually, reading those texts that were actually suggesting to kill this particular person. Ni wala mkute minyanda sorolo wala nyende ko police ole nyfan ya la min laos eno ka atol do beje atol yobo fale fa pareta. You've already hanged him, right? Why ku kilin dal so wolonde yalla bañut ken te ñep la fi nekkal dega rek moy mujjé ni nom ko te mbe sodoring adama la mansa kundale ya long jumale police lo fa adama la mansa kundale ya long munati ne fanyafo ka voko Hussein Obojang do ko la Brikama Area Council adama la mansa kundale ya long munati ne ko mama la audio filitale adama la mansa kundale ya long munati na bitumo ebe keloke kampur ka je ko ni audio kana admit in court adama la mansa kundale ya long munati ne ko hani tol fon kana sa fe ni audio bala bar adama la mansa kundala control ko ni audio so de la mi ya long ko Hussein Obojang na fo ka tele police lo fa adama la mansa kundala ko kido nyinga jetale bara lungo min na jeta ma pick wolungo ya pick after 10 days. Why did it take the police 10 days to pick a gun that was picked? Adama la mansa kundala kontrole ko Hussein wear combat boot, but of course the combat boot did not fit him in court. Adama la mansa kundala kontrole ko a part of the money he was paid was recovered, but no money was ever seen. Adama la mansa kundala kontrole ko they used codes to actually get the person, but none of those codes were actually provided when they were asked to provide them. Adamala Masa Kundala Kondoloko, they got 3 military witnesses who were coming together from one point to another, but they were also calling each other at the same time. It only control, bystanders, and of course witnesses that the people who said that moto mimbelori nyim moto ni number plate car Hussein Obojang na tamu barayara from police ole tamu de mi yalan ko kidola babulo. What kind of proper investigations was done in this case? That a file was submitted to justice and for justice to recommend for prosecution, for the same justice to come to court and lie. So what a Gambia jumala be jikela ko to nyan ntiri ngole be tamala woro. Who is going to rely on such a justice system run by criminals, including the justice minister himself? Barana jata bem fang bulong. Whatever we do with it is for our own good. But Gambians need to understand that this regime is built on lies and deceit. And the worst of people are the ones running this government. Because people who are fighting each other within, you think those people have any time to talk about or to think about the welfare of Gambians? No, they don't. This is what we all need to understand and of course need to work on. So to the few people that actually took the time to go visit Hussein, and of course spending time to talk to the dude, I've known a lot of people went there Friday to see him. You know, Masate di yadi. Ninya etonya je etonya fasano. Kata mojibe mi alonko. Even if he was rightly put in prison, kata mojibe mi alonko is in prison. It's just like going to see somebody in a hospital bed. Because it gives them a better morale, of course, gives them a better feeling that, of course, Mobe me bonto. For me, the person that got me into this whole talk passed away. That's live, and of course, Mobe bola nyinduniaja. At some point, we will all die. But until the end of this case, don't learn from my tarfatal aini. Yeah. And we will focus on this towards the end, because it's almost the end of it. By the end of it, we will get into the politics proper of it. And you know what? We don't care what one or two things. The whole point is that ining mol katara sir nalka horomo nimbunya na dinyo. But amanka ko mosila da molla jam. And amanka fananko, people speak because they just want to speak. No. Mona namanta jenyi politic ku fankola barasila. I'm politician already because our lives and decisions entirely depend on it. Cementi manko member Gambia depends on political decisions. Baluo dabe kolea minna, it depends on political decisions. The deliberate removal of the Auditor General speaks to nothing but absolute corruption in the regime. And those are political decisions. So when people tell you don't get into politics in your cause, you know, you have a career ahead of you. My brother, even your career is dependent on political decisions, because the level of education you get, and of course the kind of job you get, and probably the life you live, is dependent on politics and political decisions. So if you leave the worst of society to be making those decisions on your behalf, then you realize that of course you failed in your own, path. You know mutonyati. Potal nga tonya la fasan no. Mbe tonya la fasala nga tonya fon no. In our communities, wherever one is, you definitely got to be honest to yourself. Or put yourself in that position today. Let's say Nathara BBB. I wouldn't even get to say what exactly happened. But let's say, amibo jamii alonko, aliala dimbale be charindi. Fentem fale fanyami lakan. Dindi ngolo babulu. Dindi merango babulu mi alonko was less than 2, like momi alonko about dindi ngomi susu nikali was samba jail for over 2 years. What dindi ngoba menkang abako mamala bayamink. The trauma that you've imposed on those people is everlasting. What about? Ale trauma mila kang is going to be a lifelong thing. But just for the entire nation to be quiet about something, we all know that something did not go right here. But again, how are you actually going to give those people a stable mind going forward? Atoli wala dunia la betinya, almatinya fenna fala politiko ning konante ya ninjoya. But we have people in society who would see all those things and still act like they are deaf and dumb and they don't want to say anything about it. But they will not even shut up, but they will vilify people who choose to say something is not right in here. Who in Mile 2 prison, who works there, would tell me that Usain Bojan killed the cops? Who in the government machinery will now open their lid and say Usain Bojan killed the cops? Including that so-called journalist for VM Tarawale Lomba. Moro, I know Sino Fonka Monte Sambala Code from Telephone Benda Bebondala Code. We are not taking you to any media council or whatever. Some of you need to pay the price for your evil and wickedness and your outright stupidity. Karidada Sila, you go and fabricate an entire script. Usain Bojan ne police ulfa a confess and then you put in an insert where only Mama is talking and you did not hear Usain Bojan talking. Fanyala tambida wala. Moro, ni mo sida o fabrication sifaka wala etakang. How would you actually feel? I sent you a message about it, you ignored it. You can ignore it, but when we meet in court, you will pay for the price of your stupidity. Then you will know what happens. Because Tilimbalian in Joyan in Hasidia Mantambinyina. How could you even get to a conclusion that he killed the cops? And then you made a whole video about that and then, of course, concluded it. Finally, that, of course, yes, he confessed to the killing and, of course, he is the murderer. How, bro? How? And if you realize that that was a mistake, you cannot even come out to apologize. When people reach out to you, acting like you are ignoring them. Moro. Yalo ikata police letter come airport de ko kulubali atilele ntolle balo ferintete kulubali atete tinyate han banna sal benekino fon man ton nitasi yen dangen sohor dangen bon dangen inyan. Or you think because you need followers on the social media you could just go and be lying against people? Ite man fahami man journalist yano e meke ko fongolo ite jump don ka ko Hausen Bojan ne police ulfa telephone ka police ulfa and then you made a whole story about that be wulia be falfania. Imam Maliman Sela Morbo Fole, instead of even having the remorse to apologize for it, you're trying to show that you got ego. The young man will come out, sue some of you for defamation. Probably when you start, you are being asked to pay millions. Then you be found on the world, some of you got to pay the price of your outright stupidity. Because Tilimbalia man tambiwala. Tilimbalia nin konante ya nin joya man tambinina. You know, I used to believe that back then, you know, it was until around 2017, 18, we were studying in Southeast Asia. Number long he was doing civil engineering. So at the time, I used to think that Gambians don't do bad. So ning kuku kera Gambia udanga boy, I'm a foreigner lamaning. You kind of sound very xenophobic or whatever. You think Gambians don't do bad? I'm like, boy, Gambia went to look and kusi falke kom yin sunyar jawol ninyi mo fa fenkol. Kwanya ndo kete man Gambia no lo Latin. Probably you just grow up in the fringes of Bruford and the people that you see are your relatives and your families and they try to put you through and all of that. But if you have an extended understanding of Gambian society, kwanya moro mo kurungol mantamintola modulla. And then you know mutonyati. Mo jawol dolo fana mantamintola modulla, including this VM tarawala ni mo kotamol. It's understandable if people make mistakes. You say, Amoro, maybe this is, you know, he's still learning to be a better journalist and he could just apologize. You could not even apologize for what you said. And you went out there to just fabricate scripts against somebody and turn around and act like, oh, you know, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm not going to apologize to nobody. You know, it's probably your right. Moral rights goes with responsibilities. When the dude come out, some of you people, we basically got to pay the bigger price of your stupidity in court. And nothing will stop that. Don't even see these things as, you know, somebody is trying to threaten some of you. No. Mora jarda le minna purka wuliya lakang. Abe jarla nya wala to sue some of you to court for defamation, and of course you pay the price of your stupidity. Abe olukono, you look at, you know, those NPP talks. Along kabirin yung kuwa keta. Imagine presidential advisors jumping to write statements like trying to associate it to a particular political party, specifically the UDP. Amantili kilin si dorong ibe murunda kela saferul be delete. Tabiri ya long ko moro kula manta ku jan kela saferul be delete. Moro ali delete nyawo nyale mini safengolu lonne. Some of you might be lucky that those first 2 days we did not actually get screenshot of some of what you wrote, because I only got involved in this case, I think, after a week or two later, because my sister was constantly asking. And I had to take my time to actually examine things. Moro, ndabuka jumpi duram because nga karalo na nabara sare kelina to defend you. Nga ayo ko tonya de moro enyi minka nintil ngonin tonya manta. Moro, if I cannot encourage you to face it, you know, justly, I would just shut up. But I will not come out to defend an unjust cause. But after examining the facts around the case, after listening to Sankare ngalo na kundang useno min law man kere belt, nga useno min law buka doko ke brika area council, nga useno min law what tala UDP la court case to in Bandul, what a kula manta kujang. And after putting one and one together, we realized that of course something fundamentally went wrong here, and that is only through their own narrations. Oto tolle fango dundi, kado ni man kuke kute kang, mune bebula la fanya fola kuto mi alon ke man kulonje. Oto adam balola masakundale alon mi police olufa. So, we don't intend to stay too long. You know, it's a bit rainy out here, so I'll just call it at that. But the fact is that itolio audio lo sura mama kate audio lo sura useni bojan record la confess to daming mama anata kota ko audio nyim filitale but mama afango la sim card to president barini wala tamwoti mama kabiri man kajamba interview president wala kordala kono president wala murunta kota nke Gambia mansa kundala na fulo minta da fo million killing ya di mama jabela kato ka tele useni bojan mutate ya record but itolle murunta kota nke ko recording ci wo filitale but wo fili nya fana inara fan ya fula foje mama kate ala sim card wala bondala telephone kono ala WhatsApp delete bare DPP mi ala ko wala director of public prosecution o ko mama la telephone la tinya aninga na sim card la bondi wala man killing e bota woto ko dengen tolo murunda ko dengen audio nyim fango di fango la kadu la audio nyim was circulated all over the country. But audio nyim, you got to listen to it carefully to understand the manipulation of mama ning you know alfa seni dari. Wale atina mo follow me yela moyala tolo me yela moyala ning hakilo le yela moyala dronga moro nyine nyinke. But when you go back, you sit, you listen to it consciously, you understand that something did not go right here. Kabiri masakunda ya transcribe over 3 times, they realize ko moro tonya ninga nyimuta nyina la da wata kuta mbulu e murunte inata koto nge fanyafo ko audio nyim filitala bara ntolo nga audio sambana ali court al ko audio nyim al malafal nga mana tolle ko audio lat na tolle usenu bojamuta. We brought your own audio to you in court. You want to vehemently deny its admissibility. But Jojo nyama madi. Hana nyama tafananka intolo nyama madi. The public will make sure there is justice in this case. And we will never shy away from that. And we will not negate that responsibility to ensure that our brother gets justice. And even if he was not, any person who is involved in such demands and deserves justice. Ali audio soro audio fele sa ko audio da pile la court. Audio pile ta court mo be ya lamoy. Mo be ya lon ko ndesan. Atol jow yata ba ke la man dan ma lon ko hana man mo fanka hana man mo jow yata ting man. Fonni ke mere mere nga man ku ka la ala life be tinya man. Ali ala dimbala life be tinya. Ala sister na ding wala ali ala life be damage ali be tinya fentem falla politiko nin konante ya nin jow ya. And this is all the Ministry of Justice and the police and the criminal justice system of the Gambia that is sick to the core. And this audio is now returned for transcription to remove the names of the persons. But nobody can manipulate this case at this level. And of course, we hope that the judgments will come out soon and will be publicized. And probably, you know, if we are making the judgment for this case, make sure that you televise it for the entire nation to know the complicity of the regime and all the lies they have said, because not even a single person among all their, you know, witnesses was credible, except the person who said, ntalanga chika motorcycle ola kabonyindula kare katanyindula kare wofana ni aje fon okay noda etolla mototiyo min katale ami bojam bonena yunduma samba brufud bonde brufud samba fo brikama bonde brikama samba daslama kate o bekere within 30 minutes and atafudara daslama midnight the same day of the incident. And then motorcycle tiyo nara usenota motorcycle tiyo den kabiru onara koda ko so mo tilebulo la te usenota ita ko motorcycle tiyo at around 12 midnight motorcycle tiyo ko atara the next day in the afternoon. And the facts are that Usenu did not even go to Casamas that night. Usenu left the next day in the during the day of the next day. So in the next day ita ko ite was sambo suto ite jumala sambo suto ko wolbe jola kam fola fo kabiri futa faro kumo fola wol nato fonin kanete mi moy onyom fan yala be kering Kavoko Usenu Bojanko, police or Kate Koikana Dumbrikama Garaso Konapurate. Or the police Jumala Wote. Where is that police officer that actually told Usenu not to go into the garage? You see all the lies and fabrications. But Kabir would drive or obey along. Why did he still proceed with people that have confessed to killing somebody? Mananamo drive over for aiding and abetting a criminal. Albuka Diamo Yamato Liede. Arbading or Diamo Lobe Jamfakang. Mbe oppositional kono to diala Gambia min kumara dromo be ajoko adama na masakunda e boy tilingo ni ntonya tama Gambia constitution kuto soto mo kana lo masiala min tambira sanje tanna Gambia. We build strong institutions that are basically to serve the common interests of the Gambian people. TRRC F9 Constitutional Review Commission F9, Faraba Commission, F9, Lands Commission, F9. Adama, who was supposed to be a reforms president, had reformed nothing. Namanke to continue to perpetuate those evils and continue to manipulate and, of course, lead corruption and corruption scandals in the Gambia. Nyama Sakunda is only known for one thing, corruption and nothing but corruption. You know I'm quoting. And in Famakoyo. Kadu hani na National Assembly member ninga karte fa ye kata min fenga wala nyendo ko it will be have to animal sanne family nyaming oto karte fa ilal ala nga jibe no de nga mbe kunkan ene fere tara mulla ko do beti nya ko to tara nationwide to le buka fem fo formal family on what needs to happen. And then you see their ministers contradicting each other kuma kalandam fo mol min yalon ko to iko ni dol ba fala ko nga tractor ta woro wala di dol ba fala nga kemenen ta woro di atara dum nyen le kata ka tractor ta famal bulu ka sisi bulu ka falol nim fali fal kare sol dira. That is the agriculture you want us to do. But that only happens when you have a community knows as your agriculture minister. That tells you a lot about how this government does not care about the well-being of people. Bantol lokombo tundo kanda tol le alo mimbe kere na je. Meneka bula adama no mada tol yalo noko to nyane tilingo mantra adama la masakunda kamol ke do baltim fangol la satel kon kamol la bungolo boy kamol taradula la boy atara dong imanke na satel dinti mambo na satel kan na bankol fama talay da malu tema go to Bruford Heights, you seize lands that you said Jammeh had seized, and of course you came back again to share it among your ministers tilimbali ala tambita wala That is why I often tell people that all this nonsense thing of, TDA land is a land dispossession mechanism against the people of Congo. Let them go and do TDA in Mankamankunda. Mankamankunda man TDA so. Let them do decentralized development and take the development all over the country and go to other places and put TDAs there. Baraka molo bayina dulal doka mola bankolta molo bulka di fangolula. Itolle baraka dan tolti because itolle be mansakunda. Hey, komonkola la nyaayele. Let them say it's regionalism. Let me preach it, but we cannot continue to vote for Samba Boyo Hamilton dañ fogg na ñu gëna mus to come and even subjugate our people in our own communities. These are things that we got to talk about. We got to tell the truth to people. Molga bonela sadel do kana kan tol tilimbali na sadel kana mol muta kana mol sorong faniakang. To even use our own people against us to tell us there no ala fo karñol yede pour mo anu mbe ñabe to ñalam fangol la sadel kon kana alkalo lo bay because go to wuling kama yaji be wala alkalo wali min no brufut nin to law dandan na sadel. I remember when I was a little boy wal ka bladi mol la for just bena 300 o kuro damma but wali mo jamala suduran to law sadel kon. They gave them land, they gave them what they are celebrating today. Wale taraduladi, wale dinkraldi, wale nila dimbayal sudura. But because the regime does not win there, atol kalbe wala alkalo bondalbe mulla kele jemini alonko, wale diata atole. And then the entire community is sitting and looking at that. Tay dobi jenna mulla ko fon kande jakalle, mol nyabe tonyala. Tonya ki detal. Nya fa ka kar ka mulla sade mol do yala bara nyino mu tonyati. When the Kabilo of Boyankunda were always with a lot of funding to make sure that that place it has become what it became today. Where was Adama Barrow? Kabiri Wolko was Sare Lokadi to even give them free land. Where was Adama Barrow at the time? So I mean low what made it a fenti. Ite Walter yela sade lo fo sade futata bitem tumodo mini wollo woli kato menke wodla ita malo woli ofeng ite na ita ko ite la bol bondi ite modo la kala je because of your political interest sade bebe deri mol nyabe to nyara na manke konnante yani hasidi yani nyojo wiade moro al nga to nya fa sanno aka ko e ada me mol la silo danko kana ada mala ko ada la ko dol la fo dana ke president da sila jumal da why sila kodomi alon ke tulunta ala fon ya tinya ka dia de nyame ka boko kare silo da wala na nyanda carte file ala man tankala ala ngato nya fasanno Masakunda should be continuity and it should be for the collective progress of everyone but not to victimize people on the basis of your political interest innom ko de min nyanta danna la tonya la fola ngabara tonya la me one time mom we will make ourselves laughing stocks. This regime has got to go because it has no respect for people. So Bruford should be one example of telling this regime to get off. Because that is an injustice against an entire community. That is an injustice against an entire nation. And then you look at people who said they are women rights defenders. You see Ami Bojang Miyalong Kamani Koku Kemola. I'll be there in tech. You see people who jump and say, oh no, they are human rights defenders, but you've seen the utter disrespect and disregard to human rights when it comes to Ami Bojang and Hussein Bojang, but they all are quiet. But I'm going to forget I'm only sobela monela nyunkukon. Kabiri Hussein Mutafoloke. Ika abulo handcuff le nika na court. At gunpoint, several guns around this young man. Ngandongo jibe fala ko kambala fa ala yalong. Now see no long, boy ninding among kukala be loring, ni military lia be surrounding beni la kidol, alia bulo handcuff alkalko samba kotle. Beatilo, ika useni jakata court musu killing honey pistol in the table wala katara koma. Mko nya drone kalabang. Muna nalmo soldier will be finding nanjani la kidol alia bulo handcuff to go to court because he's a murderer. But often be kono aliala den ko nala kurro be wurala altara den ka do nyin na mi yalan ko nyamo be duroring abala because what did you want? You actually wanted to paint a picture that this is a criminal to the minds of the people, but people who have sense can reason, and that is why you utilize Peter Gomez radio to spew all your hate, disgust and lies against this young man. Ala bembele ala matiloto di ala bani